Hello my Scrappy friends, it is Jess here from the Scrappy Sisters and thank you for joining me for a Kitaholic Kits design team layout. So I started this layout by pulling the storyteller stencils that we received in a previous kit, and I am using the Novu chalk mousse. Now this mousse is a little bit sort of stiff to get out of the tub. I am using a silicone spatula also from Novu, but once you get it out it just scrapes on like butter. It is so smooth and beautiful and it works so nicely. You can see when I pull up the stencil that it is just a perfect pull. There is no sort of smudge marks, there is no dodgy bits. It just works so well. So I continue to keep popping this on. I am only aiming to do this across the diagonal section of the page. So I'm now going to do a piece in the center. I always think about whether I should dry the two outside bits first before I go in the center, because I'm worried about smudging it when I put the stencil down and it sort of overlaps a bit, but I'm never patient enough to do that. Sometimes I regret it later, but in this case this mousse is so stiff and beautiful that it actually held its shape perfectly fine. So I did keep filling in a bit more of the white spaces on this diagonal half because I couldn't help myself. It was just so beautiful. And then I decided I wanted to add a bit more. Now, this is where I actually regret my choices. I wish I had have used watercolor paints, but again, I didn't want to wait for the mousse to dry, and I just came straight in with some Heidi Swap color sprays. I pulled out a navy, but all's well in hindsight. It actually ends up being too dark. It looks almost grey. And then I sprayed on some gold and I wasn't happy with how that was looking. So then I pulled out some water, and what a difference the water makes, by the way. It just activates and it looks so amazing. I then left it to dry overnight, and I have this diagonal piece that I'm going to put across the center of the page. Now I had originally planned to put it the first way, and it doesn't actually look that bad that I look at it now in the video, but at the time when I'm making this layout, I just thought it looked terrible. I was really unhappy with the background. I really didn't like the way it looked, so I ended up switching it, which does put the writing upside down, but you can't really tell what the writing is anyway, and I end up putting it this way, so there's a bit more of the white space. Unfortunately this side of the paper is a lot more crinkled than the other side, but I'm not too worried about that. I know it'll flatten out when I pop it into my album. I can also pop it under some books or something to flatten out in the meantime. Before I use it, I could have ironed it or ran it through a laminator. There's so many options for flattening out the paper. I did none of them, but you absolutely can if it's something that bothers you. So once I have stuck on my diagonally cut paper, I then put those cute little border pieces that came in the ephemera pack, and I also took one of the chipboards that we got in the ephemera pack and cut those in half. Well, it's not quite in half, it's almost in half, and I glued that down with wet glue. I contemplated painting the chipboard, but it's quite intricate and a lot of little bits and pieces, and I didn't want to muck around with that. I think it would actually work best with a spray. Even like a real proper spray paint would probably work, or even the mists would probably work, but I just decided to leave it the chipboard color. It was fine. And I'm going to put my 3 photos down across the center, and you can see once I do that I do end up covering quite a lot of the mixed media. Now in this case I'm happy with that because I really was disappointed with how the mixed media looked. I was just disappointed with the coloring. It was far too sort of dark grey black coloring. I really wanted it to be more bluey, but anyway, it all comes together in the end, and I am happy with the finished piece, but that is why I ended up turning it upside down. Unfortunately, you don't get to see as much of the beautiful stenciling that I did, but I'm just going to roll with it anywho. We also got those beautiful white flowers with the gemstone in the center, and I have put those on top of the flowers that came with the chipboard. That was part of the chipboard. Then I am popping on my title, and my title is actually it just says Buddhist monument. I am at a place called the Great Stupa, Stupa, which is in Bendigo, and it's this ginormous, amazingly white Buddhist monument that they have in Bendigo. It's a real practicing Buddhist monument, but it is also used as a I guess a tourist attraction. I know that sounds a bit crummy, but it kind of is. But it's absolutely spectacular. They have these beautiful white sand gardens around it with fountains and the spinning prayer. They have like these spinning cogs that you turn them, and as you turn them, it says there's a prayer engraved on them, and it says the prayer, like meditation pools, and just it's an absolutely beautiful place to go and to visit and to walk around for a moment of quiet and a moment of calm. The boys just thought it was incredible. Inside the monument, there is some amazing sort of artifacts and items on display, and they even had like a scavenger hunt, I guess you would call it, for the kids and the adults, the kids at heart, to do, which really, the good thing about it is it kind of forces you to really take note and look at all the detail of all the different things. So it asks you to find, like specific statues and specific things, and then when you do that, you actually take note of what's around and what those statues are for. It was just an incredible place. So it was a beautiful place to visit. So I am also building up some clusters on either side of the photos, just layering some tags and layer pieces underneath. We got that beautiful stack of ephemera bits and bobs from Rosie's studio that had all of the kind of like the tags and the sentiments in it. So I'm just layering some of those up to create a little cluster point there. I also thought this was the perfect layout to use the doves that came on the sticker sheet, because I thought they worked really well with the theme of this layout. So I'm popping those 3 doves onto this as well. Loving the way it is coming together. So once I pop on this little dove, I am going to work on a cluster up on the top left-hand side of the diagonal as well. And I think that it works really nicely. It covers up the mixed media, just kind of tones it down a little bit. I'd never planned for the mixed media to overpower the white half of the paper. I still definitely wanted that white, stark whiteness to show through, which is why I sort of flipped it compared to what I had originally planned. I think spritzing it had just got a little bit carried away. I really had planned to have my mixed media just kind of peep up off the other half of the diagonal, and that's not quite how it came together. But in the end, I think she works. Just using a little spot of glue to glue down the strips of the ephemera, like of the tag there. Otherwise, I find that those little strings can go a bit wild. Popping on some gold splatters, and then we will have some close-ups. As I said, I do think it came together quite beautifully in the end, and it did end up working out. Thank goodness. I was a bit worried for a little minute there, and I love the way it did end up finishing off. I hope you have enjoyed watching this process video, and I cannot wait to show you another layout that I create next week. I'll see you all soon. Bye everyone. Happy scrapping.